I think a lot of scientists would be desperate to sign up for that mission.
I think so.
Although they wouldn't do it that way. I mean, they would first of all try to see if they can observe that planet. And I mean, they clearly have the technology to travel there in a reasonable time. So I'm assuming they have the technology to, observe it.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Trolling with Logic. Today we are reviewing another bad science fiction movie. Because our plans changed at the last minute, we'll have our regularly scheduled guest at the beginning of next month. We are reviewing Prometheus, the prequel to the famous Alien franchise. And this fucking movie I like to describe as Erich von Dänikens' wet dream. Because it's basically Chariots of the Gods meets the Alien franchise, basically. It's the origin story of how the alien species came about, which kind of defeats the whole purpose.
You know, it's a very frustrating film because it's well crafted. Like, it looks gorgeous, this film, like all Ridley Scott movies do. And I would argue that the first 20 minutes are fairly solid sci-fi building, but once they get to that planet, everything unravels very quickly. So it builds up some nice tension and then it just absolutely throws it away within minutes. And then it just seems to compound itself. Like I say, it's not the worst film, but it's a frustrating one, I think is the best way to put it.
That's interesting because I started face palming within minutes.
Yeah, with the whole star map they discover in the cave and connecting it with other ancient cultures' star maps and coming up with an exact coordinate based on that. That was kind of far-fetched.
There's a lot of far-fetched. I mean, the whole idea that they basically start with, as I remember it anyway, they basically reveal that humans were engineered from these... Don't they call them engineers?
Yeah, they're called
It's been a while since I saw it, but yeah, but I mean, so they're essentially going full intelligent design.
But also, isn't there this
right away?
There's also this bizarre thing I find in a lot of science fiction where we meet aliens and then, they're just like us DNA-wise. That seems to be a trope that comes up a hell of a lot. Or is that just me? I think
I see that too.
It's interesting that they created people to have the DNA of aliens that are somehow 98% identical to chimps, which were not aliens.
If you're going to create life or seed, why would you rely on the process of evolution to get your end result?
This is a problem we had with Mission to Mars and the way the aliens seeded life there, because evolution is unpredictable.
Yeah, no. Whoa. Didn't you see that Voyager episode? Where they feed the computer the DNA of something and then they say, what will this look like if it evolves for 65 million years?
And I think the main thing to clear up is that, well, evolution is just a reaction to surroundings. That's the best way to look at it. It's just how life reacts to the surroundings of it. And the idea that these aliens planned it out, that we would eventually figure out their little clues and come and find. Again, it's quite similar to the Mission to Mars. Was it Mission to Mars or Red Planet? I get them confused.
It's Mission to Mars, I'm pretty sure.
Red Planet's the one with the robot, isn't it?
Yeah, where we send algae there, and now you reminded me of that movie.
Yeah, but yeah, it's very, very kind of. It is kind of got echoes of Mission to Mars, that part of the plot. And well, one thing I do have to say is, why was this film even ever made? What was the point of this? Because who really wants to know where the space jockey? It's never really a focal point.
Okay, so the original Alien franchise was amazing because it dealt with the theme of cosmic terror, and in that sense it was very Lovecraftian. And by Lovecraftian I mean it dealt with it was sci-fi horror, and it didn't rely on explaining everything. There's this mysterious entity on board the ship that nobody understands, and that's where the tension comes in. And so when you try to come up with this elaborate origin story for where the alien came from, it demystifies it. But the whole reason the original trilogy worked, especially the first two, is because there was mystery surrounding this creature. Very similar to how in the movie Jaws, you didn't have to even see the shark that much to be terrified by it.
Right. The alien is the scariest in the first one because you barely see it. You see parts of it in the dark, and yeah, that's I hate horror movies in general, but I love the first Alien movie because it works so perfectly, both as science fiction and horror.
And it's also worth pointing out the first 3 or 4 movies in the Alien franchise, they're not terribly complicated movies. They are just essentially slasher movies in space with a big monster chasing them. That's it. That's the other feeling of Prometheus. It tries to give this elaborate, it's essentially like the Star Wars movies. The original trilogy of Star Wars, they are very simple, streamlined stories. And the prequels just try to give it this, it was all this grand planning going on, which it never really was about that.
Yeah, we don't need all the stuff about trade federation and trade negotiations.
And we didn't need to know that Anakin was always an asshole. The entire backstory, he was a pupil of mine before he turned to evil. There, we're done.
And we didn't need to know that Gungans are a race.
What I'm sorry, what are a race? No idea.
I'm
what
sorry,
you're talking about.
I think.
Are you an angel?
I think they were wiped out by.
I'm sorry. Is that a line from something? Should I be?
But yeah,
I think that's what George Lucas says when he's stoned.
Midichlorians.
What's that?
All right, yeah.
I think we're talking about mitochondria now. Which
yes, yeah.
I seem to have missed some movies. It seems like you're dropping references that I should be aware of.
So yeah, back to the actual movie we're meant to be talking about.
Yeah, so the very beginning of the movie is problematic because when the engineer alien drinks the liquid and dissolves into the river, it shows a strand of DNA floating in the river, and that's not supposed to actually be visible because DNA is just a code. Yeah,
I think Kitch, you can help us. See the double helix thing? Is that just a kind of way of graphically representing it? It doesn't actually look like that.
At the single strand level, yes, it does wrap around in a double helix. And though you shouldn't be able to see a single strand of DNA because it is very, very small. It's a molecule. So how can you see a single molecule? That's like say, seeing a water molecule. God, the bad science is spreading into my mind prison.
Yeah, but I say in this film we see the alien. He drinks this. Is it the black goo he drinks? Because this is. I still have no idea what this substance is meant to be, what its purpose is, or the black goo. It really is the Deus Ex Machina of the whole thing. It just solves, and it's just meant to explain things. That it does this, that's it. Because Kitch, what you see is he drinks the liquid, and he kind of dissolves, falls into the water. And then DNA just appears, and that's life started. Which it didn't start with DNA even.
No, with the start of it RNA, which is a lot more reactive than.
Oh, wait a minute! I seem to be misremembering. So the engineers started life on Earth altogether. Oh, okay, then I was misremembering. Oh, well,
see, it kind of seems really, really unnecessarily complicated then for a way to start life, especially for this apparent great god of whatever.
Well, yeah, it's basically made out the engineers are the ones that created life. That's heavily implied. And then it kind of cuts to sort of the near future. And
it takes place in 2089, so quite a ways into the future.
Yeah. So, but yeah, kind of sort of nearish future kind of thing. And essentially, there's an archaeological dig in Scotland, and they discover these cave paintings that appear all over the world where there's figures pointing towards the stars.
Yeah, this is interpreted as an invitation from the engineers to... Well, the human characters assume that it's an invitation to go visit them.
Yeah, but again, it's not really explained who did these cave paintings. Was it the engineers? Was it someone else?
I think it's implied that it was the engineers, but then that raises the problem of how were they preserved for almost 4 billion years?
Yeah, because...
wizards did it.
Like the one in Scotland, it's right in a cave in a mountain. I say, well...
Yeah, that cave is not going to be around for that long.
That cave is not 4 billion years old.
No.
I mean, I know we've got old whiskies
the rock
here, but
isn't 4 billion years old.
Yeah, but apparently they found these all over the world, and the engineer's plan is leaving a lot up to just chance and good luck. Like all these supposedly advanced aliens that seed life. They just think that they're going to seed life, and then they sit around and wait for and then that raises the question, why 4 billion years later the engineers haven't changed in the least bit?
Because stupid.
Yeah, whereas according to the movie, we've gone from a DNA strand to humans that can travel into space, whereas the engineers are just the same folk as they were 4 billion years ago.
Maybe in this world, the world is only 10,000 years old.
Yeah.
No.
Maybe the creationists are right in this world.
But then the engineers wouldn't have created people. So
for some reason, they managed to take this very primitive star map and they managed to trace it to a specific planet.
Yeah, that was another big problem I had, is how specific they were able to pinpoint the location. Yeah,
because that's the other thing. If this was over 4 billion years ago, they did these cave paintings, the engineers, then isn't there drift in the stars with these constellations? With some of these stars,
some of those stars wouldn't be around anymore. Some new stars would have appeared. I mean, in 4 billion years, that's an insanely long time.
I mean, I know they're playing the long game, but these guys are really taking the piss out of that concept.
By the way, I have to mention, I'm sure that people can hear baby noise in the background when I'm talking. I try to mute myself when I'm not talking, but I apologize.
It's no problem. Yeah, so like I say, from that, and then this is where it still gets a little bit more... They're put into stasis, and somehow they figured out where this planet is, and they're put into stasis, and then they come out of stasis, and then they get their mission briefing.
Why are they going to the planet in the first place?
Because it's an invitation. The script says it's an invitation.
The other thing is the expedition was funded by a private organization. The CEO of the Wayland Corporation funds it, and so they can pretty much do their mission briefings whenever they want.
Yeah, but you don't think it would be actually to everyone's benefit that they know before they go on a deep space mission what they're going to be doing?
I don't think they even know what they're planning on doing.
I think it's generally the case in movies like this that you want the presentation to be, not at the beginning of the movie, then they travel, and then they do it. They want to basically just do the briefing scene and then get on with it. So I understand in terms of, how you present the movie, how you would do this, but okay, do it in a flashback or something, because it's just, this is so common that you get the mission briefing when it's already too late, basically. I mean, who would have signed up to go somewhere? They have no idea what they're doing.
Whereas I think, all these scientists, we're going to a planet to investigate possibility of the life forms that created life on Earth. I think a lot of scientists would be desperate to sign up for that mission.
I think so.
Although they wouldn't do it that way. I mean, they would first of all try to see if they can observe that planet. And I mean, they clearly have the technology to travel there in a reasonable time. So I'm assuming they have the technology to, observe it.
They made the journey in 4 years.
Yeah, okay. So, and which brings up the whole issue of I never understood what kind of technology they have in the alien universe, which doesn't matter in the first movie or the second. But this idea of, 4 years, wait a minute, is it 4 years, are they taking relativity into account and it's 4 years for the people on the ship? Or is it 4 years because they have warp drive? I didn't think they did. Oh, this really bothers me. And in this movie, it bothers me more because it seems more like they're trying to write science fiction instead of horror.
Well, that's exactly what they're trying to do. And I have a problem with the character of the mission director, Meredith Vickers, played by Charlize Theron, who is the one who gives the mission briefing after they arrive. What does her character even do? Like, what purpose does she serve? I mean, she has the title mission director, but she doesn't really do anything.
She's hot.
Yep, she's hot, and they get her wet, and they get a shot down her top at one point. Oh no, is she not naked at one point when she's doing push-ups or something? I think that's everything. That's her whole contribution to the plot. And she meets her end in one of the most idiotic manners possible.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get to that.
I don't know, do you want to jump to her demise or what?
So they're at the end of the movie, they're running away from the crashing alien ship, and
the Prometheus school of running away from things. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a circular ship. It's pretty iconic from the original trilogy, but it's a semicircular vehicle.
Yeah, I would say a horseshoe shape is kind of...
Yeah, it falls from the sky and starts rolling upright. It doesn't fall over like it probably should, but it rolls, and the mission director and...
It's Shaw, her name is.
Elizabeth Shaw, they're running from it in a straight line instead of running away to the side like any normal person would do.
And it's coming down fairly slowly, and you can see them looking back all the time, which makes it... And I think I could actually hear people in the cinema actually saying, just run that way, just run that way. Yeah, but there's other problems. So we jump back to when they arrive on the planet. They've had their briefing. Oh, and also the character of David, the android, I can't figure out what this character is doing at all in this movie. He acts in really bizarre and contradictory ways. I have no idea what exactly he was meant to be doing on the mission for them.
He's supposed to be monitoring the flight while everybody else is in stasis.
And it's a movie in the Alien universe, so we have to have an android because...
reference.
Reference, yeah.
But yeah, like I say, we land on the planet, and I think there's kind of like a pyramid or something. Yeah, it's a pyramid they land nearby. And of course, as it seems to be the standard in all sci-fi movies, they land about a mile away instead of right next to it. I think that's just to give a great sweeping shot of the rover driving up to it, I think.
Yeah, they need an establishment shot.
And then when they get in there, there's also, like I say, everything that happens in this movie just gets you thinking, why are they doing this? What's the point of that? I think they start walking around, and this is one of the parts that eventually the whole of the next movie kind of, I don't know if what they did in Alien Covenant was kind of a two fingers to the people who criticized this part of Prometheus. They get to inside the pyramids, they take a look at it, and they say the air is breathable, and they just take off their helmets on a foreign planet, on an alien world. And they haven't done any other research. They just decide, oh, well, it's breathable. We're just going to take our helmets off. It'll be great.
There's just so much wrong with that.
Yeah, Kitch, this is one for you to come in on.
The air, so I literally have no idea what the technology is like in the future, but so when they say the air is breathable, it's just that there's a level of oxygen in the atmosphere that's actually can, sustain life.
Yeah, I think it's implied it's just that there's oxygen and there's nitrogen in the air in the right quantity. And
they haven't even mentioned air pressure.
Yeah,
but as you know, well, when you think about it, Kitch, even certain parts of our own environment, you wouldn't just, if you were walking with a respirator, you wouldn't just take your respirator off in the middle of it.
No, there can be, especially on alien planets, there can be other nasty elements,
bacteria
in the atmosphere,
pathogens in the air.
Pathogens, yeah. Exactly. That's. I mean, okay. So they say it's breathable. So I guess we can conclude then that there are no toxic gases in dangerous amounts.
Hydrogen sulfide, for example.
Okay, fine. You can breathe, but it's not just that you can breathe. It's also pathogens. That's what immediately comes to mind.
Because, like I say, in Alien Covenant, they take this to another level. where they just land on an unsurveyed world. The air is breathable, and they don't even bother with the helmets. They just walk out and they open up the ship.
Yeah, surprised they haven't been killed yet. Well, I suppose it'll be a really immersively short movie then.
If they had a better science advisor, I don't know if they had a science advisor or not on these films, but a combination of a good science advisor and a good writer, they could have come up with better ways to get them in the predicament they get in.
Well, you mentioned the writer, and it's quite interesting to note that the writer of this film is Kurtzman, who also wrote Lost. And that explains so much about what goes on in this film, that they try and establish all these great mysteries early on, but then
never address
that
them.
By the end of the movie, they just give any explanation in the hope that, say, well, an explanation will just do. It doesn't have to be like, a good payoff for all these things we've set up.
Kurtzman, what's his first name?
I think it's Alec Kurtzman. He was one of the writers, and like I say, it shows that he was one of the writers on Lost. It comes through quite obvious at times.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense now.
He also contributed to JJ Trek and at least one of the Transformers movies.
So I think it's at this point, that's when they get into... This is when they get into that kind of weird tomb area, isn't it, Marty? And it's got all the jars of the black goo.
Yeah, as I recall anyway. They just walk in there because, it follows the same general thing as the first Alien movie. They land there, they go to the place where the dangerous stuff is, and this time it's black goo instead of eggs.
Yeah, it's like all these, there's all these vases everywhere of black goo. Oh yeah, and this is when they find the engineer's head, isn't it?
Yeah, we have our stone cylinders, huge statue of humanoid head, and the decapitated corpse of one of the aliens, and whose head Shaw recovers. And
whose head is somehow immaculately preserved. That's not really explained either, how long ago. But yeah, I think, do they just go back to the ship at this point, most of them?
Well, first they decide that the species is extinct based only on the presence of other bodies.
In one location.
So there's that. But only 2 of the crew members actually return to the Prometheus vessel, Milburn and Fifield. Or they decide that they want to return and attempt to, but they become stranded in the pyramid and get lost.
Yeah, and I've never really understood how they managed to get lost. Exactly, that was...
Are they the ones who start messing around with the goo?
Yeah, but this is where the characterization falls apart. They get lost and they're panicking that they're lost suddenly, and then later on things in the black goo start coming alive, and yet they're perfectly calm when they're around these weird alien life forms suddenly.
Yeah, and aren't they supposed to be scientists? I mean, it's like the typical movie depiction of scientists. They're stupid.
Well, they're either stupid or they solve all. They know every science.
Yeah.
The Dr. Scientist trope.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the word I was thinking. But yeah, I think they take the engineer head back, and then this is one of the most egregious things. They decide to just carbon date it on the spot. And Kitch, you can explain what's going on, why this is wrong.
How do you carbonate something with no background, with no
well, also you need to know what the carbon levels were in the past on this planet and things like that.
Yeah, it's carbon-14, isn't it, that's used to carbon date, am I right? That's the isotope. So how can you carbon date something when you have no idea the carbon-14 footprint in the atmosphere?
In fairness, if they have checked the atmosphere, which we are not told, then you could make the assumption that the levels are pretty much constant, because it finds a balance naturally. But it's pretty clear from the way this is done that they just, there's this method called carbon dating. Yeah, they use that.
Yeah, and I think they just pop this head in a machine and just carbon date it somehow.
And they are, by the way, assuming that it's still recent enough that you can use carbon dating.
Yeah, that's what we were saying.
If this thing died 4 billion years ago and you try to use carbon dating, the problem is that the carbon in it, if there is any, which there probably won't be, but if there is any carbon-14 in it, then it comes from someplace else and you have to eliminate that.
Come on, Marty, I know you want to use the potholder quote for there's no carbon in it.
You can't do that. There's no fucking carbon in it.
But yeah, this is where it gets really bizarre because they start to apply electricity to the head to bring it back to life. Which
the life doesn't work like that.
This thing has been decapitated. It won't have a respiratory system or any of those nice things. But yet they think if they just add enough amps to its brain, it's going to come back to life. And what you're
saying is I cannot bring my grandfather back to life using
it worked in Frankenstein.
Yeah, but it's like, what do they expect this head to do for them when they bring it back to life? I mean, like I said, if it's going to come back to life, and the head somehow is conscious, I think the first thing it's going to say is, where the fuck's my body? And he might be a tad upset. He's not going to say, oh, thank you, everyone. Well, this is what happened here.
I don't want to say even more likely, because this is complete another fantasy. It'd probably be severe, like just assuming that electricity can bring something back to life. The fact that it's been dead for 4 billion years probably will be, a little bit suffering from a little bit of brain damage. Drive oxygen to the brain for a couple of minutes, you start to get that.
And how is it going to speak without a respiratory system?
Like I said, it's just wondering, what would they expect? Were they just having fun and they just thought, we'll just stick electricity in this and see what happens?
And how would they understand it?
That's another thing that comes up later.
There's no vocal cords or anything, what I would assume.
They do. It does kind of sort of come back round, doesn't it? It lets out a scream, but again, how can it do that without a respiratory system?
I honestly can't remember that.
And then
Wizards did it.
Yeah, but then in typical science fiction style thing, they've given it so much electricity, things start to fry and sizzle. And yeah, I don't know what. Like I said, it's a very cool looking scene, but your key question: what is it they're actually wanting to get out of this? And yeah.
From the way it's described, it seems like they just decided, hey, look, we have a head and we have electricity. Let's put the two together and see what happens.
Nothing can go wrong.
What could possibly go wrong?
Science.
Yeah, that's totally how science works.
Yeah, that's totally how electricity and biology go together.
And then I think also this is the point when the whole David character, you're just not quite sure what his point is, because there's the other theme.
Meat shield.
One purpose he serves is that he secretly takes the cylinder from the structure after all the other ones had begun leaking the dark liquid, and he gives it to Holloway, and for some reason Holloway just decides to drink it.
Because, science!
Yeah.
But again, it's not explained why he's doing this with the black goo, or if he knows what the black goo is going to do to this guy. He just does, and yeah, because I think got a set up before Holloway is married to Shaw, and this is another bizarre theme of the film, is about she believes in God, and again, this doesn't really lead to anything. I think it's about her trying to find the creator or something.
Yeah, she has a religious belief, and her whole motivation in being a scientist is to discover God, apparently.
And as always in movies, she turns out to be spot on. That there is, I have this deep spiritual belief that we were created, or that this is the creator, blah, blah, blah. And of course, that has to be right.
So what you're trying to say is that this expedition was in fact sponsored by Creation Science International.
Yeah, probably. I have to mention this. There's one movie that I can recall seeing where no one decides that, I have to rely on prayer, and that's The Martian. I'm gonna science the shit out of this. And that gets the job done. That's how it works in reality.
Because he even says at the end, Matt Damon, you analyse the problem, you do the math, and you figure it out. That's what gets you through it. That's his last lines in the movie.
Yeah, and in the movies, it's pretty much always, stick to your faith.
Or love conquers all, or some weak message like that.
Always some horse shit like that.
But yeah, this thing with David putting a bit of the black goo in the whiskey. Again, this is never explained why he's doing this, or what he thinks is going to happen, or what he hopes is going to happen.
It was Jack Daniels. He wanted to improve it.
But then, Holloway goes and has sex with Shaw that night, and again, I don't know why exactly all this is going on. Because they both came here thinking they were going to meet the creators, and they're actually bummed out. So why they're in the mood for sexy time all of a sudden is it just has to happen to progress the film, I think.
Maybe the liquid had some property in it that makes people horny. I don't know.
Because I think this is when they cut back to the other two guys that are still in the pyramid, isn't it?
Yep, and they get attacked by the snake-like creature.
Yeah, I think there was some worms or something we saw earlier that climbed into some of the leaked black goo, wasn't it? And it turns into, well, I mean, it's one thing that's consistent. It's always, everything looks like a penis or a vagina, the monsters. And this is basically a penis. And this is basically a penis with a vagina at the end with teeth.
Yeah, it's the constant references to H.R. Giger because it worked so well in Alien.
Yeah, and for some reason, they're no longer panicking, and one of them decides to go and start poking and prodding this thing.
Was that after his companion was killed, that he suddenly became calm and analytical?
I can't remember what order it happened in.
Yeah, like I said, it's been a while since I've watched this.
Oh, I am in mortal danger. I must carefully analyze the situation. Maybe perhaps I shouldn't have volunteered for this space program that has absolutely no idea what the hell it's doing, and its people start to drink black goo from the floor on an alien planet.
Oh no, they're not
Mistakes
drinking
are
it.
made.
Oh, well, the guy who drinks the black goo doesn't know he's drinking it.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's like David takes a tiny little drop, puts it in a whiskey, and then, while the other guy's not looking, just hands it to him. He doesn't know that he's drinking it.
Oh, you know why I mixed? You know why I forgot about that? That he was actually unsuspect. That Holloway actually didn't know that he was drinking some alien substance. It's because in Alien Covenant, the sequel to this, David the android tells the one crew member to, "Hey, stick your head in here and see what happens," and he just does it. And like I said, I don't have as much of a problem with Alien Covenant as I do with this movie, but I will still admit that Alien Covenant has a lot of problems.
Stick your head in here for a minute, will you? All right, has he kept his head? $5 for me.
But basically, the penis vagina monster kills one guy and then sprays acid in the other guy's face.
Yeah.
And then he falls into
allusions to Jurassic Park there with Dennis Nedry.
So essentially, they're on the way, and then I think the crew is on the way back to the Prometheus, and then this is when Holloway starts to, I don't know, he's mutating or something.
Well, he becomes sick, and they rush him back to the Prometheus. The mission director, Charlize Theron, won't let him on board.
That's a flashback to the original Alien as well.
So they won't let him back on board, but they'll take their helmets off if they see that the air is breathable. And Holloway demands that they burn him to death with a flamethrower. Yeah. That's probably has some inspiration from The Thing as well. So they have to get the flamethrower.
That's a rational and completely rational and sane response to the situation. Totally not over the top at all.
And yeah, it's at this time like David's off exploring the engineer ship on his own. And again, and that's what he, the bit that was just made for the 3D when he goes into the room and the giant star map, which did look impressive in 3D when I was watching it the first time.
Yeah, when I watched it, I saw it in theaters as well, but I didn't see it in 3D. But he finds a surviving engineer in stasis as well.
Yeah, that's right. That comes into play later in another bizarre scene. But yeah, I think it's back on the ship that Shaw starts to feel uncomfortable, and she's going around the ship, and then she finds this area of the ship that's been locked off, and this is where she does this scan of herself, isn't it?
Yeah, I actually kind of liked this scene because I think this scene is actually well executed. The way she has to do everything, she had to do everything to herself.
Yeah, so the basic thing is that she's meant to be sterile, but then she finds out she's pregnant, and she's got a squid monster inside her. So basically, she goes to the surgery bay, but the surgery bay is only set up for men, which she thinks is quite strange. But the surgical unit manages to extract the creature from inside her, and it staples her up, and she goes in her merry way, which leaves one question. Did she just close the door behind the squid creature? Because I was always, why didn't she try to kill this thing or get the machine to kill it or whatever?
Well, she just extracted a squid creature from her abdomen, so she probably wasn't in any condition to kill it.
So I think she just closed the door behind her. And then this is where the big reveal is that the Wayland guy has been hiding out on the ship and he's been on this mission all along with them.
But hang on.
Spoilers.
I just can't get over the idea that the machine would be set up just for men.
It's just for Wayland, apparently.
I know why. I remember that the reason why it's there, but it just doesn't make sense. If you have that equipment, why does it have that function?
Why was it even allowed to be brought? Why was it brought on board when there's clearly a woman on the team? That seems, I don't know, not really safe. Like, whose bright idea was it to say, oh, let's do that one? The entire thing is just badly planned. No wonder so many people die in this movie series.
Oh, yeah, but at least in the Alien movies, they're dying trying to figure out ways to kill it in intelligent ways. And this, they deserve to die, a lot of these people. There's no dispute.
In this movie series,
Eyebrows Man belongs in this movie.
Yes, he definitely does. But I think this is when they pack up and they head over to the engineer room, isn't it? With David and Wayland and all them, they head out towards us because they're there to, as I said, find out where the creator came from. They go into the room, and I think this is when they wake up the surviving engineer. And for some reason, it's now revealed that David is fluent in the engineer language. And again, I will say, how and when and where did he learn the language? Where was there any of this language ever written down or in records on Earth?
That was a very obscure Babel course.
The only hints to it are in the stasis sequence where he's watching a load of foreign movies, but that still doesn't explain how does he know the engineer language.
We learned your language by observing the World Wide Web.
Well, if he had done that, he would have just been saying libtard, lol, fag, aha. Right,
yeah, but apparently it works. You can just observe the language.
He's fluent in foreign. He's fluent in the language foreign, so...
And he watched, he was watching Lawrence of Arabia, wasn't he? I didn't get why that was in the movie either. It's in the stasis, he's shown watching Lawrence of Arabia, and I was thinking, is there references here I'm missing? But no, that didn't pay off in any way.
Oh, I don't recall that specific reference, but I'm guessing it has something to do with they want to have some kind of sophisticated cultural reference thrown in somewhere.
And they could get the license.
But yeah, they wake up the engineer and David asks, now this is where some subtitles would have come in handy because he says a few things to the engineer and for some reason the engineer just decides to decapitate him. And then he violently murders Wayland. And like I said, why is the engineer reacting like this? What's going on? As I said, some kind of explanation is needed here.
Maybe he wasn't as fluent in foreign as he thought.
Yes.
Maybe he insulted his mother.
Maybe he was just speaking net speaking in Alien.
That would explain it.
And he just went and he actually did say lol fag at him.
Trump 2089. Sorry, that might be a little bit old. Trump Tron 2089. Well, science, what have we done?
Oh, this is also the point at which it's revealed that Wayland is Charlize Theron's father.
And that leads to nothing. It does not serve the plot in any way whatsoever.
Please tell me they at least try to do some sort of Empire Strikes Back with it.
Well, it's like it doesn't have any emotional impact on anything. It doesn't have any relevance to anything when she calls him father. And
because Charlize Theron's character is completely emotionless throughout.
Well, she doesn't. Look, all she does is naked push-ups. That's all she's remembered for, and then dying in a Darwin Award-winning way. That's about it.
She's a completely incompetent mission director.
Well, the whole crew is incompetent.
Oh, that's true.
So I think this is when, and then this is another bizarre scene that happens that they show the bridge of the ship and the captain of the ship who has had nothing to do suddenly appears and then tells everyone, this place was a weapons facility. We need to get out of here now. And again, I was just saying, how do you know this? And who are you? You've done nothing. You've been in the background.
Who the fuck are you?
Yeah, that was it. I just said, wait, what? You're here. You're in this movie. Then he just comes in and says, oh, this is a alien test facility. We need to go now. Bye.
This was like I'm thinking probably this scene was a shoe-in. Like they needed a last-minute explanation for what the dark liquid was.
Or what the place actually was. They needed... It's like I say...
The writers... It's probably something that wasn't in the original draft. Like, the writers looked it over and it's like, oh, hey, there's a plot hole here. We actually haven't done anything with the dark liquid. We need to explain that somewhere. Let's stick this in.
Yeah, at this point, and also we're cutting back to the main... This is where Shaw runs and tells the captain that the engineer is planning to go back to Earth and kill everyone and release the black goo on the planet. I don't know how she's deducted this either. Yeah, because suddenly she's just saying, oh, they're going to kill everyone on Earth, and say, how did you figure this out exactly?
Apparently, they want to explain in extreme convoluted detail where the alien creature comes from, but they don't want to explain anything else about how they come to know anything.
I mean, that is, they just suddenly think, oh, they're going to kill everything on Earth. And like I said, I was kind of thinking, wait, how did you figure it out? And as I say, Marty, when you keep asking these questions in a movie, you know there's problems. So I think this is when, because I'm trying to remember the sequence of it, because it's so muddled, the ending. It does the engine, because the engineer tries to lift off in the alien.
I think the most glaring problem with the ending is that I know I'm not the only one who feels this way. I just didn't care.
Yeah, but I'm trying to. The alien ship tries to take off, but there's problems with that. When you look at it, it's not the most aerodynamic thing. So how's it going to take off in an atmosphere? Yeah, that's no way. But then it takes off, and they manage to make the engineer crash. And then, as I said, that infamous sequence when they're running away from the crashed ship. Yeah, because the engineer is chasing the Shaw character, isn't it? And then the squid monster comes out of nowhere and kind of rapes the engineer. And it's able to completely envelop a tall engineer life form. But yeah, it's just happened. I don't know how it got all this extra mass from, or how it managed to grow so quickly.
And that's a problem with all the Alien movies. But in the first one, I don't care, because it's good.
But in the first one, they actually show that it takes place over a span of time that it grows.
Yes, but it's still, what did it eat? But yeah, it helps that it takes time, and also the mood is it's so good that you just don't care about these things.
And the other thing is, just to go to the Alien movies, the space between Facehugger and Chestburster seems to completely shrink as the movies go on. Because again, in this, like I said, it face rapes the engineer, and then about 10 minutes later, the chest burster or whatever comes out. The proto-alien, I think they called it, wasn't it? Whoa. And then, some reason, she gets the David character who was decapitated and is an android, finds her head, and then they just suddenly decide to head off. Somehow she figures out how to pilot the engineer spaceship, and they head off, and that's it. And there ends the film. And again, there's the problem with how do they know how to pilot this bloody ship? Or plot a course with it? Or that it's got air or anything like that? And like I said, if it's been there for billions of years, well, how is it still able to work?
This is like the car in Jurassic World, just times a billion.
Yeah, I think that's the whole thing. That's the point. We need to somehow connect this with the Alien movies. What I don't get is, was this supposed to be like the first part of several or something like that? Because it seems like they're trying to set something up. Do they continue with this in Alien Covenant?
No.
They don't they? No.
In fact, Alien Covenant bizarrely comes along and contradicts events in this one. Because if you remember, because this is one thing from Alien Covenant. In Alien Covenant, it's revealed that David creates the xenomorphs that we know. But if you remember one detail, when they went into the egg room, there was all these hieroglyphs and paintings on the room, and one of them was a picture of a xenomorph up there.
So I kind of get the impression that this was supposed to be a story that continued in the further movies, but when they saw the reactions to this one, they decided to basically retcon it out.
Yeah, I think so. Because there's Alien Covenant is bizarre. It's such a weird hodgepodge of things in my view. I know Nathan seems to like it, but like I say, establishes
I don't know if I like it. I just don't really get as upset as everybody else seems to be getting over it. And maybe that's just because it's in comparison to Prometheus. But as long as they are retconning it, and I'm just not as enraged about it as a lot of people seem to be, even though I can concede that it's not that great of a movie and it does a little bit of a disservice to the Alien franchise, but I don't think it ruins the Alien franchise like a lot of people think. And I actually did enjoy it as a bit of entertainment.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, the way Prometheus ends, you think Shaw and David are going to go off to the end, and you think, well, that's going to be the sequel when they get to the engineer planet, and them maybe, there's going to be an adventure on the engineer planet, but none of that happens. Shaw doesn't even turn up in Alien Covenant. She dies off screen.
Yeah, I think they were they probably were planning on continuing the Shaw story originally, but decided not to.
But like I say, then there's like all these there's these contradictions that open up, because I think Alien Covenant is set 18 years before the events of the first Alien movie, and it's established there David creates the xenomorphs, but if you remember the first Alien movie, Dallas specifically says this ship has been here a very long time.
Unless they form as fast as facehuggers grow into xenomorphs.
Okay, shall we wrap it up there?
Well, and that was our show. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for listening to Trolling with Logic. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider leaving us a review on iTunes. If you love the show, please consider becoming a patron on Patreon. Supporting us at $5 or more per episode will get you access to exclusive, patron-only bonus content, early access to shows before everyone else, and other incentives. We are an amateur production, but with your patronage, we can help improve our audio quality and cover the costs for doing the show. We are grateful for anything you can pledge to the show. Go to www.patreon.com/trollingwithlogic to sign up if you are so inclined. We want to thank our 4 patrons who currently have chosen to support us. These patrons are Microbloganism, Josh at the Society for the Advancement of Science, Avinash Kumar, and Brian Curran. Thank you very much for your support, which is helping us out. If you have any suggestions for topics or guests you would like to hear on this show, let us know on Twitter or on our Facebook page. Thanks again for listening.
Really solid sci-fi building, but once they get to that planet, everything unravels very quickly. So it builds up some nice tension, and then it just absolutely throws it away within minutes. And then it just seems to compound itself. Like I say, it's not the worst film, but it's a frustrating one, I think is the best way to put it.
That's interesting, because I started facepalming within minutes.
Yeah, with the whole star map they discover in the cave and connecting it with other ancient cultures' star maps and coming up with an exact coordinate based on that. That was kind of far-fetched.
There's a lot of far-fetched. I mean, the whole idea that they basically start with, as I remember it anyway, they basically reveal that humans were engineered from these... Don't they call them engineers?
Yeah, they're called
It's
the
been a while
engineers.
since I saw it, but yeah, but I mean, so they're essentially going full intelligent design.
But also, isn't there
horseshit
this
right away?
There's also this bizarre thing I find in a lot of science fiction where we meet aliens and then, oh, they're just like us DNA-wise. That seems to be a trope that comes up a hell of a lot. Or is that just me? I think
I see that too.
It's interesting that they created people to have the DNA of aliens that are somehow 98% identical to chimps, which were not aliens.
If you're going to create life or seed, why would you rely on the process of evolution to get your end result?
This is a problem we had with Mission to Mars and the way the aliens seeded life there, because evolution is unpredictable.
Yeah, no. Whoa. Didn't you see that Voyager episode? where they feed the computer the DNA. I seem to have missed some movies. It seems like you're dropping references that I should be aware of.
So yeah, back to the actual movie we're meant to be talking about.
Yeah, so the very beginning of the movie is problematic because when the engineer alien drinks the liquid and dissolves into the river, it shows a strand of DNA floating in the river, and that's not supposed to actually be visible because DNA is just a code.
Yeah, I think Kitsch, you can help us. See the double helix thing? Is that just a kind of way of graphically representing it? It doesn't actually look like that.
At the single strand level, yes. It does wrap around in a double helix. Though you shouldn't be able to see a single strand of DNA because it is very, very small. It's a molecule. So how can you see a single molecule? That's like say, seeing a water atom or a water molecule. God, the bad science is spreading into my mind prison.
Yeah, but I say in this film we see the alien. He drinks this. Is it the black goo he drinks? Because this is. I still have no idea what this substance is meant to be, what its purpose is, or the black goo. It really is the Deus Ex Machina of the whole thing. It just solves and it's just meant to explain things. That it does this, that's it. Because Kitsch, what you see is he drinks the liquid and he kind of dissolves, falls into the water. And then DNA just appears and that's life started, which it didn't start with DNA even.
No, with the start of it, RNA, which is a lot more reactive.
DNA of something, and then they say, what will this look like if it evolves for 65 million years?
And I think the main thing to clear up is that, evolution is just a reaction to surroundings. That's the best way to look at it. It's just how life reacts to the surroundings of it. And the idea that these aliens planned it out, that we would eventually figure out their little clues and come and find. Again, it's quite similar to the mission to Mars. Was it Mission to Mars or Red Planet? I get them confused.
It's Mission to Mars, I'm pretty sure.
Red Planet's the one with the robot, isn't it?
Yeah, where we send algae there, and now you reminded me of that movie.
Yeah, but yeah, it's very, very it is kind of got echoes of Mission to Mars, that part of the plot. And one thing I do have to say is, why was this film even ever made? What was the point of this? Because who really wants to know where the space jockey? It's never really a focal point.
Okay, so the original Alien franchise was amazing because it dealt with the theme of cosmic terror, and in that sense it was very Lovecraftian. And by Lovecraftian I mean it was sci-fi horror, and it didn't rely on explaining everything. There's this mysterious entity on board the ship that nobody understands, and that's where the tension comes in. And so when you try to come up with this elaborate origin story for where the alien came from, it demystifies it. But the whole reason the original trilogy worked, especially the first two, is because there was mystery surrounding this creature. Very similar to how...
I think a lot of scientists would be desperate to sign up for that mission.
I think so.
Although they wouldn't do it that way. I mean, they would first of all try to see if they can observe that planet. And I mean, they clearly have the technology to travel there in a reasonable time, so I'm assuming they have the technology to, observe it.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Trolling with Logic. Today we are reviewing another bad science fiction movie. Because our plans changed at the last minute, we'll have our regularly scheduled guest at the beginning of next month. We are reviewing Prometheus, the prequel to the famous Alien franchise. And this fucking movie I like to describe as Erich von Dänikens' wet dream. because it's basically Chariots of the Gods meets the Alien franchise, basically. It's the origin story of how the alien species came about, which kind of defeats the whole purpose.
You know, this is it's a very frustrating film because it's well crafted. Like, it looks gorgeous, this film, like all Ridley Scott movies do. And I would argue that the first 20 minutes are fair.
In the movie Jaws, you didn't have to even see the shark that much to be terrified by it.
Right. The alien is the scariest in the first one because you barely see it. You see parts of it in the dark. And yeah, that's I hate horror movies in general, but I love the first Alien movie because it works so perfectly both as science fiction and horror.
And it's also worth pointing out the first 3 or 4 movies in the Alien franchise, they're not terribly complicated movies. They are just essentially slasher movies in space with a big monster chasing them. That's it. That's the other feeling of Prometheus. It tries to give this elaborate, it's essentially like the Star Wars movies. The original trilogy of Star Wars, they are very simple, streamlined stories. And the prequels just try to give it this, it was all this grand planning going on, which it never really was about that.
Yeah, we don't need all the stuff about trade federation and trade negotiations.
And we didn't need to know that Anakin was always an asshole. The entire backstory, he was a pupil of mine before he turned to evil. There, we're done.
And we didn't need to know that Gungans are a race.
What? I'm sorry, what? That what are a race? No idea.
I'm sorry, I think.
Are you an angel?
I think they were wiped out by.
I'm sorry. Is that a line from something? Should I be?
But yeah,
I think that's what George Lucas says when he's stoned.
Midichlorians.
What? What's that?
All right, yeah.
I think we're talking about mitochondria now, which
yes.